Hello, happy Tuesday. Welcome back to Kimmy Talks. Today we are going to be discussing residential real estate. And I know that I normally air on Wednesdays, but we have the awesome pleasure of meeting with Andy today. And so we're airing on Tuesday. We did try to just do this one take and there was no audio. So hopefully there's some audio now. Renz, if you're watching, comment, let a sister know if we've got some audio this time. Either way, we're really excited to be here today talking about residential real estate. Andy Alpern has been a real estate agent for quite some time now. So, Andy, share with us a little bit about how you got into real estate.
Well, thanks for having me.
Of course.
So I was in nonprofits for 13 years. I got my bachelor's in human services, worked in the field, and I started out, I got promoted, I kept getting promoted. And eventually I used to love human services. And do we have audio? I really hope we do. I really hope so.
I'm checking.
So I loved human services. It was great. And eventually I realized I did want to do something else and I lost some of that passion. So I was thinking about doing something else. I didn't know what I wanted to do. And then I got promoted. So I'm like, okay, this is a great, opportunity to learn and get experience. And so that kept happening. And eventually I was actually pushing for my colleague and I were pushing for a promotion, for like a job to be created for us. It didn't exist. And they created this job. We're live. You can hear us now?
We're live. We have audio.
Yeah. So I pushed for this job to be created and it was. And at that point, I thought to myself, is there anything else I want to do? And I thought about real estate. And I knew the risk was like 75% like failure rate then. It's probably higher now. And I said to myself, like I thought to myself when I was making this big decision, like, is there anything else I want to do? Like because I ended up at one point I was doing like quality assurance and internal audits for our company. And I was like, let's pretend I was working for the state of New York auditing. Sounds great, but like my joke. But let's say I was doing that versus real estate and I was making more money auditing. What would I rather do? In real estate is what I wanted to do. I felt like that was just what I wanted. So I knew it was that I actually wanted to do it. So that was probably how I made that decision of, that I really did think I wanted to do real estate. And so I gave my notice and I went in full force doing real estate. You
dove right in.
I did. Yeah.
It's really awesome. You took a huge risk and normally people will ease into real estate.
Yeah.
They'll keep their full-time job and do real estate on the side, and you just jumped right in.
I felt like if I did it full force, I would just be more effective. I would really be able to put my all into it. And I really was passionate about it. So like I went to all the courses in person. Like I wanted to network and talk to people and really learn.
Yeah.
And when I started doing it, it felt right. Like I felt like that passion. Like I felt like it was going to be what I wanted to do. And so, yeah, I just jumped. That was, I think the courses were 2014. I think it was January 14th or whatever, early January of 2015 that I did this full time, where I was working as a full-time realtor. And then I didn't get my associate broker license until I want to say maybe 3 years ago. But yeah, so I think I've been doing this for about 11 and a half years. And, the first year was, I had 10 sales, which was actually really good.
That's awesome. Yeah.
Number-wise, it was very tight. But, year 2, 3, and 4, it was more like in line with human services. So it was good that I came from human services. It wasn't as, big of a, and then 5, 6, and 7 is when I really took off more number-wise. But really year 2, it was like, I had clients and I was, selling houses, and it's good.
Yeah. And you've been very successful. How many families would you say you served last year, roughly?
Roughly 40. I would say probably on a slower year, 35. On a fast year, probably close to 50. So I'd say I averaged roughly 40 a year, give or take.
Awesome. Well, during that time, I'm sure that there were challenges and obstacles. It's been 11 years of a journey for you. So, what would you say some lessons were? I know we learn every single day, but what would you say are some really pivotal lessons that you learned over that time, or even just some challenges that you had to overcome?
I think one thing is change. It's always changing. I mean,
Yeah.
back when I got into real estate, getting a professional photographer was a big deal, and everything changed. Social media, what agents do, the laws. I mean, regulations with there's just so many changes constantly. So being flexible, doing what's working, bettering what's working, refining what's not working as well, and just trying to keep changing and bettering, and that's been huge, I think,
Yeah.
for me, because it really is the industry, even before the shutdown in 2020 compared to now, is pretty much completely different. I feel like.
And even embracing that change, right? Like, I feel like a lot of people that have found themselves not successful is because when change happens and when it comes, it kind of like knocks them off their horse, right? They're just, and so, or they become fearful of it. And so really embracing that change and making it work is so important. And preparing for change too. It would be silly for me to sit here and think that FHA mortgages today will be the same exact in 10 years from now. Guidelines change every single day, right? And in your industry, the market changes every single day. Interest rates are changing every single day. So it's really it's just embracing that change, preparing for it, understanding it, and then moving through it, right? So I
A lot
think
of
that
opportunities with it, really. I mean,
Yeah.
when something happens, like even if it's stressful change, people don't always like change, but if you embrace it and you learn from it, sometimes actually it's a good thing, or good comes out of it.
Sure, yeah. So that's really great. I think now I want to talk a little bit about, our first time home buyers and what advice you would give them. If Kim Antonucci was a first time home buyer and I'm sitting down with Andy and I'm coming to you as my real estate agent, what would be some advice that you would give me right now? Kind of obviously to prepare me as a first time home buyer.
So first, I think as a first-time home buyer, I like working with first-time home buyers and home sellers, because if you bought before the pandemic or sold before the pandemic, I'd have to kind of help you unlearn what you knew or
Yeah.
think you know now.
Yeah.
And
The know-it-all.
I mean, they did go through it, so it's hard to say, well, yeah, I know this is what happened, but this is not anything like what happens now. So as a first-time home buyer, I like the fresh slate. And I think that people that don't know, they feel like they're not going to know anything, or they're like, I don't know anything about real estate. I'm good at helping people understand step by step. I'll give you as much information as I can, overwhelm me, but always bring it back step by step and explain big picture. So as a first-time home buyer, I would explain the market, the aggressiveness, that it's not always aggressive. When it is aggressive, how do you mitigate your risk?
Right.
How do you, if there's 10 offers and people are waiving inspections, how do you protect yourself and get an offer accepted, or at least make an informed decision on that? So I will break down every step of an offer. First, as a first-time home buyer, the first thing, and you would know this because you're not really a first-time home buyer in this situation, you want to get pre-approved through someone who's you.
Yeah.
who's like, through somebody who's local. And the reason I say this, in a market before the pandemic, it mattered. The process could be easier. A transaction could fall apart here and there if you were pre-approved with somebody who maybe wasn't local. But now, if an agent, like a listing agent, Like when I list a property and I'm looking at offers, I look closely, and some agents will do it. You never know who's going to and who's not. Are they pre-qualified or are they pre-approved? Is it a good local company? Like have they been? There's some pre-approvals, pre-qualifications that aren't vetted. Like they're not even like their credit's not run. Like the honor system. I mean, I've heard of these kinds of things happening. So
or stated income.
yeah. I mean, so offers, people often think like the highest offer is the best, but there's so much to offers. Who are they pre-approved through? Is it FHA? Is it conventional? Is there an inspection? Are there appraisal gaps? But then back to the buyer piece, you want to protect your buyers. So like, I'll give you one of the secrets that I have. So I don't like the idea of waiving inspections, but I also know that when there's 10 offers, you can't always just get it accepted with an inspection,
right?
Depending on what the seller wants to take. And I get that because, someone could back up, you could negotiate. So I've got an inspector, and I think several will do this. Let's say we're looking at a house today, and you're like, I like this house. If you pay an inspector for like, let's say a 30-minute walkthrough, they can look at structure, electrical, some important things that you kind of want to know about.
Yeah.
If you waive that, now it's on you.
Yeah.
You close.
Right.
So then if you do that, maybe you're comfortable waiving it, you've at least gone in somewhat informed, yet your offer is stronger. And not every house is going to be worth an aggressive offer for every buyer. So like for me, for you, and working with you as a first-time home buyer, to me, I would educate you in the market. When we go over those offers, I will show you everything that makes your offer stronger, everything that makes it weaker. And I'll show you why. And then you'll decide what you want to do. And then we'll practice. So a lot of the time, there'll be like a highest and a best deadline. And so people don't always understand. They're like, well, I think this is good. And they think there could be some negotiations later. And usually there's not. So I'll pretend like, Kim, congratulations, you got the house. Do you want it? Like pretend it's a $300,000 house. You got it for $1 million. No. Do you want it for 400? No. Do you want it for 300? Yeah.
Yeah.
Now I'll pretend, Kim, you didn't get it for 300. It's gone. And I say that because people like this could be your dream home. And I'm like, it is gone. It's just so gone. I'll be nice about it. I'll feel bad. But pretend we'll do this before we put the offer. I said, Kim, you did not get it. So sorry.
Yeah.
Would you have gone higher?
Like sort of like a role play and kind of.
And as long as you say I'm good with getting it or not, even though you obviously want it, then I feel like I've done my job. You've made an informed decision as a first-time home buyer who knows nothing, but yet you know who to go through for pre-approvals.
Yeah.
And it's always your option. Like you can use whoever you want for that. You can get 20 it's always your risk tolerance. But I just want to teach you what's stronger and what's weaker, and then you make an informed decision. And I've done my job. And that's what I would tell a first-time home buyer. Or a third-time home buyer, except for the third-time home buyer, I would say, you're going to, do this for your offer. You're going to do that. I'll show you like what sold, what listed, how quick it went, just to inform you. And then quickly, you'll usually have that realization, and I'll have to keep reminding you. Throughout,
And that's a good point you make. Even though you've bought a home in the past, it's nothing like it was then. So even if it was, in my case, 5 years ago, it's very different now than it was even 5 years ago. So that's a really good point to make.
The only exception is if it's, sorry to interrupt you, if it's been on the market for a while, I say a while, like a week or 2 weeks, then you want to treat it more like a buyer's market.
You might have a little leverage.
Because it's probably overpriced or there could be issues with it. So anyway, sorry to interrupt you, Karen.
It's okay. So let's see. Let's talk a little bit about the team. It's so important, I feel, for our clients to have the best possible team behind them. Because especially with our first-time home buyers, but really anybody, this is a very large purchase. This is what we would call a huge life event. And even when I talk to my investors, that do maybe 20 properties a year, it is so important to them too, to make sure that they have the right team. And oftentimes it's hard to know and understand what that is, right? How do I know who the right attorney is, or insurance agent, or lender? So I know from working with you over the years, you really do a great job. Even when you're getting ready to submit an offer, you'll loop in the client's team in a group text message and say, hey, we want to submit the best offer ever. Here's Kim. We're going to talk about the financing side of things. Here's me. We're going to talk about the logistics of the purchase and the real estate. And then finding the right attorney and the right insurance agent. I mean, there's so many players that go into purchasing a home. And so did you want to speak a little bit about, finding the perfect team?
Yeah, I mean, I think it is important to just to have some people that know real estate, that know how to. There's so much to it. I mean, there's communication throughout the whole transaction. People get stressed when you're buying and selling a house, and I've gone through it myself. It's like your worst foot is forward because it's so much emotion.
Yeah.
It's so stressful. So, like, for example, if you want an update from the attorney, and a lot of the time there is no update, but if you reach out and you don't hear for several days, it scares people, especially if you're buying and selling together.
To get nervous.
What happens if one happens and the other does? You don't have a place to go, your finances, your life's all in order. So communication is huge. Also for the financing, because a lot of the time the update is we're still working on it. We don't have a closing date. We don't have, but just hearing that response, it's not a file, that it's a transaction. Also, a good attorney who knows real estate, first, you're not usually getting a flat, or you're not usually getting a, by the 15-minute interval, you're getting like probably a cheaper rate, but also someone that knows real estate. Because if there's a title issue, that's huge. You need to find out if there's.
Yeah, I can't even tell you how many clients I've had over the years that says, "Oh, well, my grandpa is an attorney," and then we find out that he specializes in, divorce law or something. It ends up being a very lengthy, cumbersome process. So that's a really good point that you make. Make sure that the people who are players on your team have been in the real estate space for long enough to be able to educate you and help you through the process efficiently.
The other thing is having a mortgage person that, and I sorry to bombard you on the weekends, but that works on the weekends, because if you're looking at a house on Saturday, which happens a lot, and
in most cases, the
buyer might want numbers run, even if they've been run before. They want to know the taxes, just like a rough estimate of what their payments are going to be, how much they're going to owe, like down and monthly payments, and to be able to reach out to somebody, because if there's an offer deadline on like a Sunday, you kind of need to be able to get in touch with somebody. So that's huge. There's just so many factors that go into it, but the team's important. Like you're only as good as the team that you have.
Absolutely.
And even refining your team. I mean, like sometimes you have to make hard decisions and, tweak, who you're using. But you work for your client. I just think it's important to surround yourself with good people. I mean, it's like, I'm not doing everything. I'm referring somebody to an attorney, to a mortgage person, to an inspector, to insurance people, and so I think it's important to do your best to just do that.
Awesome. Well, before we wrap things up, I kind of just want to pivot a little bit to the market, Central New York, what we're seeing, what we're dealing with. It's very different than the rest of the country, is what I'm finding. I'm licensed in New York, Florida, California, Washington, and I find that Central New York is just a whole different beast all on its own. And we are still feeling a lot of what we were experiencing during COVID, when it was like our peak housing market, right? And so I want to just touch a little bit on the market today in Central New York. What's happening? What's going on? What are you seeing? And why? Why is it still this kind of crazy space that we're in?
So prices are actually higher than during the pandemic. sometimes the offers aren't as aggressive as far as how many there are. It depends. I mean, I remember in 2021 in the winter, you always have trends. The winter typically is a little slower, but you could have 30 offers easily on a property in the winter of 21. So we had a shortage before the pandemic. It didn't get felt. It wasn't felt like it was during the shutdown when we opened back up. All of a sudden, everything took off. And the market has just continued to grow as far as, I should say, the prices have gone up.
Yep.
And it's stayed tight. So there's a shortage of inventory. Micron is coming here, and there's certainly a lot of speculation. You know, a lot of business people are excited about that, and there's investors, and there's people moving here. But there's also the part that our market is priced low compared to a lot of other places. So there's two schools of thought.
That's true.
People that like are from here, you could buy a house for 100,000, and if that's 300,000 now, people think, oh my gosh, the market is so much higher.
It's very inflated.
And some people think it's overpriced, though of course that's what they're selling for. So, you know, the market people would say that is worth it because that's what people are paying. But a lot of people think it's going to crash, and nobody can predict. But there's another school of thinking where they come from, other areas like California or a lot of places where prices are so high, and they see the prices here. People see with Micron coming, they speculate the market is going to go up.
Yeah.
So a lot of people, including myself, I can't promise what's going to happen, but I bought an investment property. I'm working on a second one. I'm a believer the market is going to go up. And so I think there's a lot of opportunity here. So what was your question? So why are prices going up here? I think there was a chronic shortage. I think we don't have a lot of senior housing here. There's not a lot of ranches relative to some communities. So, you know, you get like 55 older communities in places like Florida, and a lot of places we don't have that.
We don't particularly have
new construction. We don't have as much new construction.
Yeah.
A lot of people don't want to sell because they don't have a place to go, or the logistics are too tough. I mean, there's so many reasons, I think, why the market's tight, but it just is tight. And so, you know, it's kind of.
And I don't think that needs to scare people off.
No.
You know, it does, unfortunately, which also plays into some of the inventory issues that we have, is this sense of fear. But, you know, it's interesting because I have been having this conversation a lot with my investors and even my clients, even my first-time home buyers. You know, I say to them, don't look at what it was and what it is now. Only focus on, does it make sense now? And will it make sense down the road? You know, people are so hyper-focused on the past. Well, interest rates were 3%. People drop it. It's not, you know, and so what I tell people is, especially when they get hyper-focused on the interest rate, when they start really getting crazy about it, I just tell them, let's talk about something else, because the interest rate is such a small piece of the puzzle. What matters the most to you? What matters the most? Because I know it's not the interest rate. What matters more to you? Your monthly payment? Or, you know, the amenities of the house? We need to dig deeper and figure out how it's going to make sense for you. And then that's what we look for. And then we can fit it into this market. When people focus too much on the past, they'll forget about what would make sense for them today. Mm-hmm. And also, wouldn't you agree that when house prices were lower, mm-hmm. people had a lower income?
Well, yeah, everything goes. I mean, you can always look in the past. I'm sure when someone bought a house, you know, for $50,000 many years ago, that could have been expensive at the time. And maybe that person was like, I would never pay $50,000 for a house. You got to get ahead of it to a point. So first, the problem with interest rates and prices going high, one thing, some people can't qualify. If you can't qualify, those are all issues.
That is the problem.
There's things you can maybe do to work on that. But then even as an investor, you have to look at the numbers, but to a point. So I'll give you an example, like a $165,000 house, let's say. Would you go to 175? to get ahead of everything. Arguably, depending on the transaction, yes. Would you go to 200? Probably not for an investor, depending on
Right.
the situation. I'm giving like abstract numbers. For an owner occupant, though, it can be a different story. When you look at like the number per, like, so when I was buying a house, I think there was a 15,000 for my, where I live, not an investment property. It was a $15,000 negotiation. And back then, I think that was like roughly 105 a month.
Right.
Interest rates were a little higher. So, I weighed how much do we want the house versus $105 a month. And it was worth it. Not everything would be. So I think there's different ways to look at it. But first of all, rents are high. Home prices are high.
Yeah.
Everything is high.
Everything is high.
And I'm not saying it's always the right time for everybody, but there's things you can do to mitigate your risk. If you waited, like 2021, I remember people waiting to wait the market out. They would have made so much money. I bought in 2000, I think it was like about a little over 2 years ago. That went up since then.
Yeah.
I mean, so like,
it's crazy all the people that waited it when it was the best time that they possibly ever could have sold or purchased.
well, it'd be a better time to have bought even before that. But you're right.
Yeah,
it would have been
yeah.
a good time to buy. And I mean, there's so many different things, but there's also life. Like, you want to own a house.
Yeah.
Like, I mean, the good thing is you get a fixed rate typically, unless you're getting a
Sure,
very
I know.
good rate. So if you get a fixed rate, arguably, like, your payment is going to stay the same, except for the things like taxes and insurance that go up. But
yeah.
eventually, hopefully, you could actually gain from that. Like,
Sure,
let's say
yeah.
5 years from now, you're like, oh wow, my payment's only this, which
Yeah,
right now looks
yeah.
might look low then. So
Yeah.
and then you get equity in there, and there's just all these benefits.
A
So
lot
like,
of benefits.
I wouldn't be scared off by buying in this kind of market, but you want to be comfortable enough where if a repair comes up, or if it's an investment property that the numbers do work. You don't just want to jump in and get into something that's
Sure.
a bad investment. There are
Sure.
absolutely bad investments.
Yeah. Yes, there are. Well, Andy, thank you so much for joining us
Thanks for
today.
having me.
I'm sorry we had to run this through twice with the audio
I hope
issue.
it's on now.
Yeah, I hope so too.
too.
And so everybody, next week, we're going back to the commercial side of real estate. And so please tune in next week. I'll give you a little bit of a warning on what day it will be, but we're very excited to move into that commercial space next week. Until then, you could always reach out to Andy if you have any real estate questions, and me if you have any financing questions. And thank you so much for joining us.
Thanks.
Bye-bye.